Well, modern physics is showing us that life is actually not like that. But actually there are processes of liveliness, of vitality, of dynamism, which actually the new physics and also questions to do with biology, etc., are helping us to understand that organizations are not designed on Newtonian, well, they may be designed on Newtonian principles, but actually they don't work on them. They work on questions to do with thermodynamics, with relativity, ideas that grow out from biology, evolutionary thinking, and so on. So we're really having to think quite differently. Let me pause there for a moment. Lorna, any sort of points you'd like to pick up and underline, question at this point?
I just wanted to maybe kind of relate some of this to some thinking about business strategy as well. We're hearing a lot about this being the era of consequences at the moment.
Yes.
And with a lot of organisations trying to completely, well, first of all, survive, but also think about how they are going to become more sustainable, whilst needing to do more for less and be a lot more efficient than they've ever been. There's a real need for this kind of joined-up thinking, to use a phrase which is becoming more coined. And those questions that you've highlighted there are incredibly important, because these are all parts which are in that stew of unresolved issues that you referred to earlier. I was working with a client recently who had an idea for a new strategy about doing joined up thinking and sort of joining up different parts. And he originally saw it as a primarily technical solution. I mean technical not necessarily in the sense of IT, but technical in that, you know, he knew what the company needed to do from an action point of view. And he thought, well, there will be around maybe some people issues around this. We may need to let some people go, or we may need to shuffle people around jobs. And he assumed that the solution would be primarily technical, about 80% technical, maybe 20% people-oriented. He has now come through to an understanding, having thought through a lot of these questions, that actually what's involved in achieving the efficiencies that he's looking for and to implement this sort of leading-edge strategy, it is actually around an 80% cultural issue and only a 20% technical solution. That there is a whole raft of things to be thought about, which is that stew of unresolved issues that need to be unpacked and looked at in the context of this new strategy. And what's emerging here is how the structures have been allowed to evolve in a way that prevent a lot of joined-up thinking. So structures to do with power and authority, structures to do with, you know, how people are organised into different groups, things to do with what is unconsciously valued in the organisation, and, you know, a whole lack of structure around leadership as well. So rather than this being, I suppose, seen as soft stuff that needs to be looked at through a few training courses, this has now become a very crucial part of an adaptive business strategy, which will enable the organisation to become much more, not just more effective and efficient, but for them to think collectively as a business and to work collectively as a business as well. So I think, you know, these questions, each one involves a very deep process around it, and I just wanted to kind of draw the attention to bringing this into a strategic context as well. This isn't just something for one department. These are questions that need to be asked right across the organisation and linked to what it is you want to achieve as a business.
I think you're so right. I recognise that very, very clearly in my work again and again. Let me go on and sort of see if we can get this into some diagrammatic form, which might be helpful. If we try to sort of conceptualise in a sort of patterned way, what you're saying is that the present moment, thinking about how to work together and trying to get more for less and thinking about sustainability are all being handled against a background where relationships between people are seen in personal terms. That is, I am who I am, I'm the way I am, and you are who you are, and you are the way you are, and what we need to do is to be able to find a way to understand each other. Now this is really important, because if we're thinking in terms of personal relationships, we're going to be hesitant about being critical about other people, or if that's our normal way of engaging, our default position, then we may start off in a state of aggression. But these are personal relationships built on personal feelings and attitudes and assumptions and beliefs and values and hopes, etc. But if you simply see them as personal, then you're going to be faced with difficulties. As soon as you start to bring the organization or the working system into view, you've now begun to have to take a new set of factors into account. Here we are, we've got this pair of people with their history, which we've been talking about up until now, who really are seeking to work within a system. Now notice what we've put at the top there. Within this system is an aim. That's what it's for. Not simply, to some extent, yes, it's what it's designed to do, but also it's what it is actually doing in the light of the fact that it lives and swims in a working context. You talked, Lorna, about joined-up thinking. The trouble is the thinking needs to be joined up not on the basis of Newtonian physics, like the connecting rods in a machine, but in terms of being able to see the dynamic, interactive nature. And that's it's about role relatedness rather than personal relations. So that you relate to me in relation to what we're setting out to try to do. Our interaction with each other is mediated to us through work on what it is we're setting out to do. What is the aim? And when we're able to think in terms of the aim, which links us in the work within the system, and we all belong to lots of different systems, and we have to work out often which system we're primarily in, then we're able to work as a person in role. We can bring into that situation all the energy, the imagination, the potential, etc., the assumptions that we've made, the way we're using our previous experience and beliefs and values. We're able to begin to deploy these as a genuine resource rather than in fact of the causes of difference and separation and the development of barriers and a silo mentality. So if we take that kind of into operating officer who I was talking about, he'd been told by his managing director that what he needed to do was to start confronting people. And when he said, oh gosh, that's going to be very difficult, I just don't know how to do it, etc., she, as part of the program of work that I'm doing with that particular company, she said, well, look, what you've got to do is you've got to start confronting the people who are reporting to you. And what I want you to do is to use John Bazalgette and talk to him weekly about the confrontations which you've had with your staff. Now, this was her idea, not mine. I wouldn't have put it like that at all. But since what she was trying to do was to move from the rather softly, we're all in a delightful business, very important, it's got a lot of good values and beliefs, etc. We mustn't go and upset each other, from moving that kind of culture. She could see that something had got to move in terms of what she was calling confrontations. So I accepted the assignment. And what I set about was to now help him to, first of all, write a couple of paragraphs about each of his confrontations, and we would then discuss them for an hour or more, so that we began to see that these were functional moments in the life of the organization as a whole, that these were telling us about forces and factors which up until now he'd actually not been taking into account.